So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another sort of preview battle for the upcoming patch. And of course, you can see that Rune are going to be in this fight. I'm not in this fight, however. This is Rune, played by Stefan2110. And they are going to be facing off against, if we see in the background over there, Cardalin, who are going to be played by Rules1. So we'll go through the army compositions. If you're not interested in that, then you can skip ahead to the battle by using the timestamp down in the description. Now, Rune are one of the factions which have been in quite a few of the preview battles I've shown, and I think that's because more recently they have been a subject of a few changes, mainly when it comes to their pricing, and they've also been given, obviously the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen were new, and I covered them when they first came out. But we'll have a look at what Stefan has brought, and we'll start off at the front of his army, with a unit which I haven't actually seen in the test patch so far, the Eastron Clan Guard. Obviously the Clan Guard have always been a bit of an enigma. They've had AP in the past, but they've always been very, very fragile. And I can't imagine that's going to change all that much as we sort of go down the line here. Mainly because, obviously they are unshielded and they aren't the most heavily armoured. So to put them at the front is a little bit risky, because they will be very susceptible to archer fire still, I believe. But if we go back here, we can also see that he's got a lot of the Eastron Clansmen. They have been upgraded with the upgraded armour model variant. And this is of course the previous model of the Runic Swift Blades. I think this does give somewhat of a sense that maybe the Eastron Clansmen could stand up to units that maybe they can. So it might be a little bit misleading. They are better than they once were, in all fairness, but they aren't the kind of infantry that you can expect to send up against the standard fair infantry tier infantry units of the other kingdoms of man and expect them to win. You want to be deploying the flag rim if you want that, but as far as deploying a decent unit that has a lot of numbers to them, I think the Eastron Clansmen will be a very good choice, so you're likely to see a lot more of them in the upcoming patch. And then as we move backwards here, we can also see the Loknar Rim, or the Lokanar Rim, I think that's how you pronounce it actually. They're the sort of slightly higher tier archers that Rune can deploy. They still aren't sort of really high tier, but they are better than the Variag mercenaries which we've seen in the past. So against lightly armoured factions, I would suggest these guys would be a pretty good investment, although Cardalin have changed pretty significantly, so we'll see how useful they will be. There's also some Baltroth tribesmen back here, of course basic javelin units, potentially very lethal, provided you can get them into a good firing position. And then back here we've also got a couple of Eastron Clan crossbowmen. Lightly armoured crossbows, potentially very vulnerable to being singled out by archer fire, of course. That's always been the case with them though. So how you use the Eastron Clan crossbows is not really going to have changed from how you've seen it in the past. Back here we've got the Loke Flag Rim, of course, or Loka Flag Rim. Whichever the correct way of pronouncing it is, I really should nail that down once and for all. Obviously this heavier infantry unit, so they will be a lot more dependable than the Eastron Clansmen, so putting them in amongst your line to act as your anchors will probably be the most wise move here. We also have the Dragon's Wrath Warlords back here, the new version of the Runic Bodyguard. Definitely an anti-infantry cataphract, because I do believe they have a malus fighting other cav akin to the Gondorians. If you want to go for a cav-to-cav fighting unit, you definitely want the Carmel's Dragon Knights. And over here I believe we have some of the Horse Archers. We do indeed, the Variag Mercenary Riders. We've seen quite a bit of them already. Horse Archers in general will be much more effective in the patch as it stands. And over here we also have the Scion Rim. The Scion Rim are going to be one of the more effective sort of heavier spears that you can expect to see in the game as well, so obviously very much akin to the sort of heavier spears of Gondor. Rune also have one of them, which could be a bit of a boon for them against some of the kingdoms of men which are a little bit more aggressive, so we'll see what Cardalin do. But obviously as spears they are going to be a little bit less potent on the attack than on the defence. And over here I think we've got another unit of Flag Rim, indeed we do, so we've got a couple of units of Flag Rim, and then over here we also have the Loke Scion Rim, covering some Variag mercenary chiefs, which previously the Horse Guard I believe. So again, a slightly lower tier cavalry unit in support of the Carmel's Dragon Knights, who at the moment I think they've been changed a little bit. But there was a point where they were the most effective heavy cavalry unit in the game. I think that's changed a little bit to bring them more in line with the others, because they were a little bit too effective for their price point. And as you can see how Stefan has sort of deployed, he was expecting his opponent to be in the middle, but Rules, wise to that, has sort of just deployed in the right area, so he's front on to him. Cardalin are a faction which I haven't showcased yet, and they have changed quite a lot. In the past, Eriador, as once they were known, were kind of, while I did gain an appreciation for them later on in the patch's life cycle, they were always pretty dependent on you getting the drop on your opponents. In a straight up fight, they would most often be the ones on the losing side of that. Having said that, Cardland now are very much the opposite to that. They've got a lot of very heavily armoured units which they can use to hold, but they still can ambush as well, so they are almost a bit of a hybridisation of Arthur Dane and Rudauer, which does make sense considering they are the third of the Arnorian kingdoms that I've shown. And at the front here we've got some Minas Girithglin archers. Ugh. J-Monster's the linguist, not me. But yes, we have these very heavily armoured archers, so again, I think these guys have got a pretty hefty armour bonus next to the other armoured archers of the Kingdoms of Man, but I do think you can bring less of them, or at least the plan is that you can bring less of them. So at the front here, in terms of a skirmish fight, Cardland should have the better of this, because they will be able to outperform the Narim, which should force Rune to come to Cardland here. He's also got a lot of these Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen. I think the biggest draw of these guys is their ability to function as a tar pit, obviously previously known as the Bree Militia. They've got a pretty decent shield value, which again means they're going to be able to soak up a lot of arrow fire, which Cardland are going to be very good at in the coming patch. I think something that they're going to share with Dale as well, something that they can really leverage in a archer heavy fight. But in melee they are not very good, so they are going to be something you want to engage in melee very quickly if you're up against them, and only sort of send into the fray if you have to, if you're using them, because I feel like their ability to soak up arrows is something you really want to be using. Now if we look in here, we can see the Wardens of Tirn Gothrad, the elite Cardland pikemen, very much in the same vein as the Arthur Dane Gate Guards, very similar. The thing to note with these sort of very elite pikemen from Arthur Dane and Cardland is they will encourage the troops around them, so just their presence here on the front line will prevent these Greenwatch spearmen from being routed quite so easily, which is going to be important for a militia unit like this. Back here we also have these Minas Girithglin sharpshooters, so again, very similar to the archers at the front, only crossbows. I believe they also pull out maces in melee, so their ability to function as a makeshift infantry unit is also very high. You have to remember, of course, that as crossbows, they are going to be very much the focus of your enemy's attention if they want, because you know how potent crossbows can be from the last patch. They do have a lot less ammunition now, but that doesn't make them any less potent when they get their nice firing line. Then back here we see some Erin Vaughan Axemen maybe? Previously known as the Lumbermen, so lower tier shock troops, and they are being sort of held together by these Tharbad Warhammers. Previously they were the Cardland Warband, but they've been given a complete overhaul. They are now a high tier shock troop, and again I think they are similar to the Witch Realm Hammer Guard, except they are not quite as good as the Witch Realm Hammer Guard, because Cardland are meant to be dependent on a few other things, whereas Gundabad, that's really their focus, being aggressive with their very strong infantry units. But the Tharbad Warhammers are still going to be very deadly against armoured troops, which of course Rune does have a few of, so the Flagrim need to be careful of these guys. And then over here we can also see the Cavalry Corps of Cardland. We've got the Dunedain Bodyguards, some Tharbad Riders and some battle-ready Dunedain. And over here, if we look at the Dunedain Bodyguards, very similar in many ways to the Serpent Guard. They always have been. They're sort of the same round shields and lances even. But yeah, very quick. You don't really want to be getting them into a melee with other cavalry for too long though, especially not Rune's heavy cataphracts, because they will really struggle. Over here, the Tharbad Riders, it's a similar story, only they do have more numbers in the unit, so they should be able to sort of hold their own for longer, simply because they can afford to lose more men before they start to fall apart. And then over there we've also got the battle-ready Dunedain, which is basically the same thing as the Dunedain Bodyguards, only the slightly lower tier version, because obviously the bodyguards you can only have one of. So, without further ado, let us begin. So having a look at this, I mean, straight away we can already see that Cardland have got the positioning advantage. Rune was expecting his enemy to be in the middle here. However, that is not the case in the end. We can see over here that the sharpshooters sort of forming up. The sharpshooters are going to be the main danger for the runic cavalry, and also their presence, the heavy crossbow presence, does lead me to believe that Cardland are going to try and sort of wall up and really try and put a stop to any sort of runic advance. Now over here we can see the Minas archers. They are going to be getting into position and getting ready to fire down. Something like the Eastron Clan Guard are going to melt before most archer units, and the Minas Girithglin archers are a pretty decent archer unit as well. Even a low tier archer is going to do a pretty good job at dealing with these unshielded, more lightly armoured infantry units. See over here with their sort of two-ended glaives. As the archers come in, a few more of them dropping. There are only 3 archer units though, so if Rune can sort of position themselves correctly, I mean it is going to be down to Rune, I think, to mount some sort of offensive here. Otherwise, Cardland are going to be able to expend all of their missiles into the runic lines, and Rune can't afford to lose that many men. Even the fodder tier units are going to be important. You can see that the runic cavalry sort of getting into position. Rune do have horse archers, whereas Cardland do not. So that mobility could potentially be something that they do want to utilise. Rune also have crossbows of their own, so potentially they're going to be able to do a good job at zoning out the Eriador cavalry, but of course the runic crossbows are also very, very weak to arrow fire here. The Dunedain bodyguard getting a very nice frontal charge onto the Z-Strong clan guard, and they're getting run over there. So a very nice quick charge. They're very nice hit and run cavalry units that Cardland have, very quick, and you need to micro them well, otherwise they will end up falling. The Variag mercenary riders back here getting into a position where they can start shooting the Eriador cav. The Tharbad riders, not really the target you want to go after, I don't think. The shields, and of course the fact that is the lowest tier cavalry unit that Cardland have brought to the field. You can also see though that Rune are starting to come forward now. The Eastron clansmen are here. Well, the Eastron clan guard have taken some heavy losses, but they're also getting into position. And the clan crossbows are also heading forwards as well. The Tharbad riders, you can see these Eastron clansmen taking point blank fire. This has been a really rough day at the office for Rune so far. The entire front line of these Eastron clansmen have fallen, and now the Tharbad riders getting in. A nice charge there onto the front of those clansmen. They do need to be careful of the Eastron clan crossbows, but it does look like the Cav micro here is good. Also be careful of the javelins, they'll be able to kill the cavalry pretty quickly. And if you look over here, the battle-ready Dunedain, once again, seeing the clan crossbows nice and exposed, and the crossbows are something Rune really can't afford to lose. That stopping power is going to be very important for dealing with the heavily armoured Cardland corps. This is definitely a much more quality-focused Cardland army. They're definitely focusing more on their defensive attributes. You can still be very much... Oh, hello. You can see over here, these Dunedain Rangers have been uncovered by the Carmel's Dragon Knights. Cardland can still very much function as the ambush-heavy faction they always were, but they now do have the option of being very defensive with the heavily armoured units as well. So the Tharbad Riders and the Dunedain Bodyguards retreating, as well as the Dunedain Rangers. These Carmel's Dragon Knights are going to be a bit of an issue for Cardland. The crossbows are really their only solid answer to them. The Dragon's Wrath Warlords are also still alive over here. The Eastron Clan crossbows are here as well. And if you look actually over here, you can see that the battle-ready Dunedain are being focused down at this point. The staggered advance of Rune continues. These Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen, they will be able to hold against these Eastron Clan Guards simply because they've taken so much damage on the approach that they're already routing to a very low-tier Militia Spear unit. The real action, however, going on over here, the Carmel's Dragon Knights are going to be able to get a rear charge onto these Greenwatch Garrison Spears, but they are also getting very dangerously close to the crossbows. The Sharpshooters are going to be able to deal some pretty hefty damage to them unless they quickly cycle on out of here. Dealing a pretty heavy blow to these Greenwatch Garrison Spears though, but all of these crossbow bolts coming in. That's 3 units worth of crossbows, and several of the Dragon Knights have fallen. The Dragon's Wrath Warlords are also doing the same, however, charging in. And back there we can see the Variag Mercenary Riders are also going to reposition. The arrows of those Horse Archers are going to be pretty difficult to use effectively, however, although the Runic Archers are going after the correct targets. They are going after the lightly armoured Axemen. Most of the other Cardland units are going to be very, very effective at holding back the arrow fire. Shielded, just generally designed for that sort of thing. The Loke Flagrim and Loke Scionrim combining their powers, however, to break this unit of Greenwatch Spearmen, because they will fall away pretty quickly. These Wardens of Tirn Gothrad are not really fully in the fight, and good on the Runic player here for sort of focusing on the more fragile sections of the Cardland line. Going after this very elite pike unit would not go very well for the vast majority of the Runic infantry, I don't think, other than the Scion Rim and Shield Wall. You can see over here the Variag Mercenary Chiefs pinning the Dunedain Bodyguards in between themselves and the Eastron Clansmen. The Cardland Cavalry is very quick, but it doesn't have the same punch and staying power as the Runic Cavalry. The Archers are back here still firing. The Archers and the crossbows of Cardland still haven't really taken much damage at all, and they're still going to be able to take care of that Runic Light Cavalry. This Eriador Cardland Cavalry, you can see over here these Greenwatch Spearmen have been largely surrounded, but again, it is only by Eastron Clansmen, so with the support of this cavalry they should actually manage to dig themselves out of this hole. But the Dunedain Bodyguards are also being targeted by the Runic Crossbowman. As you can see over here, this is where Rune are having the most success. That one unit of Greenwatch Spearmen really wasn't going to be able to deal with the Runic Heavy Infantry and Spears. And back here we also have the Balchoth tribesmen firing their javelins into the front of these Greenwatch spears. Not the highest profile target, but Cardlin are running a little bit lower on infantry than Rune are. If we have a look at the percentages of kills, Rune have lost 4% more, 5% more even. But a lot of Eriador's lower tier units will start to fall away pretty quickly as soon as they get engaged by decent stuff. So you can see here the Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen up against a proper spear unit, as it were. The Locust Scion Rim are going to be able to easily deal with them, and once again being twinned with the Loke Flag Rim, this is a very potent combination of heavy melee infantry and heavy spearmen. Meanwhile back here you can also see that the Runic heavy cavalry has sort of backed off from the crossbows a bit, but also the Runic horse archers have been really mown down by the Eriador archers. Looking over here though, one of the units of sharpshooters has taken quite a lot of damage, possibly from the Runic crossbows or simply from sustained fire from all of their archer sources. You can saturate that armour and shield score after all. So a lot of skirmish fire coming down on the crossbows, and rightly so, because the crossbows really are the main sort of element of this Cardlin army. If they do well against Rune, you're going to really struggle. And over here you can actually see that the Tharbad Warhammers have been committed to melee. Perhaps a little bit too late, because already this sort of flank is starting to fall to Rune. The Tharbad Warhammers are a small unit as well, so they're going to need a bit of assistance, I think, to deal with all of these Scion Rim and Flag Rim. And indeed, that assistance is going to be given to them by some Minas Girthlin archers who are out of ammunition. Their armour values mean they'll stick around in melee for quite a long time, but they're already taking some pretty hefty javelin fire from the Balchoth tribesmen. And then back here you can see the Dunedain bodyguards trying to get some cycled charges in. They do need to as well, because this area is where Rune are having the most success, as I've said. The Eastron clansmen have also managed to mop up these Greenwatch spears, although they are taking constant charges from these Tharbad riders. Again, a lower tier calf than the Dunedain mounted units. However, they will still get some decent damage done off the charge, and also they are drawing the attention of some of the ranged units of Rune, which is pretty good for them. Back here we can also see the Dunedain Rangers firing the Rangers very accurate, and with their body piercing they are going after the Balchoth tribesmen, which is a very nice target as well.
Only half our force remains.
Well, what's going on over here? Some more Tharbad riders going after the Eastron clan crossbows, which again are a very important tool for Rune.
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men.
At this point, Rune are going to have to hope that their two very heavy cavalry units are going to be enough to pull them over the line here, I think. You can also see those Variag mercenary riders managing to get a charge in on these sharpshooters, but the sharpshooters are a heavy cav unit, so a horse archer is not going to be able to deal with them in melee. Most of Cardlin's heavily armoured units will double as pretty effective mainline infantry as well, should the need arise, but you have noticed as well that one downside to building a Cardlin army like this is it is very static other than the cavalry, and also the vast majority, you are going to have a smaller army most of the time. Rune's numbers have helped them go around the sides of the Cardlin lines somewhat. Having said that, if we look over here, the Wardens of Tirn Gotharad are now able to get fully engaged in melee with this runic infantry, and suddenly the reinforcements that have been tended to them by the Tharbad Warhammers and the archers that are out of ammunition are starting to turn the tide on this front, so the runic infantry is going to need some support. If we look back here, the Scion Rim is also starting to struggle. The Tharbad Warhammers are a very lethal unit against heavily armoured targets, so they are up against the kind of foe they like to fight, heavy spears. Meanwhile, if you look over here, the Eastron clansmen that routed and came back are actually behind the Cardlin lines, and they are going after the Dunedain Rangers. If they can get rid of these Rangers, that could be a bit of a boon for them, because they're really the only Cardlin unit left that has any sort of substantial ammunition. But if you look over here, the Carmel's Dragon Knights and the Dragon's Wrath Warlords now have the opportunity to get in amongst what little Cardlin units still have ammunition, although those sharpshooters still have ammo, so they need to stay clear of them. A hammer and anvil charge over here, a bit of a slow charge there, which is a bit unfortunate, but they will still be able to get in behind these Cardlin lines and give some support to their beleaguered infantry, but that was a nasty volley. I can't imagine these Dragon Knights are actually going to get out of this situation, although the Dragon's Wrath Warlords to the rescue, getting into those Minas Girthlin sharpshooters. These Tharbad riders trying to make it so they can't get out of there. The Eriador crossbows are going to be very important, because otherwise they don't really have much of an answer to these heavy cav units. Even as depleted as they are, the cataphracts are very, very difficult to deal with if you don't have a genuine answer for them. Of course, they do still have those high tier pikes, but they're going to be in danger of getting dealt with by the runic infantry, because over here, The Eriador line has fallen apart. The low tier axemen were not enough to stabilise it, where the Warhammers stabilised them on the other flank. So the Scion Rim and the Flag Rim are still in decent health over here, and they should be able to get in behind those Wardens, potentially anyway. It looks like that's where the Flag Rim are going. The Scion Rim are going to go back and try and engage the Minas Girithlan sharpshooters in melee, along with the Dragon Knights getting another decent charge, but another volley goes into the Dragon's Wrath Warlords. Not exactly the sort of thing they were hoping for. If you look over here, these Eastron clansmen, battered but not yet defeated. These Dunedain Rangers are also still alive, so it is a very close fight, although it's looking like Rune are going to be able to pull this one out, simply by having the advantage of being able to manoeuvre around with their superior numbers. Also, Eriador, really the crossbows were the only thing that were ever going to be a really decent counter to the runic heavy cataphracts. That elite pike unit was really there to hold their line together, and it obviously wasn't going to be able to run around the battlefield chasing heavy cavalry all day. And to be honest with you, those Eriador pikes have held together very, very well. I mean, there's 64 of them left. Not many of them have died at all. And they've done a heavy amount of damage to this unit of Flag Rim, which has been fighting for a long, long time. They're tired now. And also the Tharbad Warhammers, they haven't taken too many losses, but defeat is starting to look like a possibility for them now. And the runic archers that are out of ammunition adding more numbers to this frontal assault. The cavalry, it looks like, are going to be able to pull Rune out of the hole that they initially looked like they dug for themselves, although now the Wardens of Tirn Gothrad have been routed, attacked on all sides, and it looks like Cardolan's morale is going to fall apart here at this point. And if you look here, yeah, Rune have pulled 10 percentage points ahead. The Tharbad Warhammers are shaken, and I think that was the key in the end. I think this goes to show that, you know, Cardolan can absorb a great deal of pressure, but ultimately I think that the runic cavalry was going to be a bit of a tricky one for them to deal with. And the Eriador, the Cardolan cavalry was never going to be able to do the hit and run quite as effectively as it could against other factions, because the prevalence of the runic crossbows and the runic javelins would make it very difficult for the Cardolan cavalry to get a nice trade by charging in. And even then, they still managed to get some nice frontal charges. This could have gone a lot more heavily in Rune's favour if Cardolan didn't get in those sneaky charges at the start, which basically destroyed a unit of Clan Guard and then did a heavy amount of damage to some clansmen on the approach. But as you can see over here, the Golden Horde is going to finish this fight off, and it's only the Tharbad Warhammers that remain. They're shaken. And I don't know whether it's going to be player admitted defeat.
Only by a sword's edge.
First time we've seen Cardolan. Very well played by Rune though. And I do think that Cardolan are going to be one of the factions which Rune are going to like fighting. Unlike with Imladris, which I showed a couple of videos ago, Rune are going to prefer to fight an armoured faction, I think. It just seems to be a little bit more their style. It always has seemed to be. And Cardolan with a little bit more of a shift in focus. I do actually think that Cardolan would probably be better off trying to go for some of their older tactics against Rune, with some ambushes perhaps, and trying to keep them at arm's length a little bit more, because here the Greenwatch Spears, while they're pretty good at sort of absorbing arrow fire, they were never going to be good enough to stand up to the runic heavy infantry, which is a bit of a shame, because a lot of the Cardolan ranged units, ironically, are actually pretty decent melee infantry. It's just that you need to expend all their ammunition first, really. So let's have a look at what runic units did the most. And obviously the Loke Scion Rim did a very good job here. They managed to push their way through those Greenwatch Spears very, very efficiently. The Dragon Knights getting a large amount of kills as well. We have a look down here. Obviously one unit of Clan Guard got 0. That was the one that got flattened by the Cardolan Cavalry. Same story with that Clansman unit, which only got 6. But a lot of the Clansmen did okay. And again, against lower tier units like the Greenwatch Spears, that's where the Clansmen are going to shine, because they are better than most lower tier units, I would suggest. Obviously it was very much the opposite against the Elven sort of Quendi units. Not going to be the sort of thing they're good at, but here they got to shine. And over here the Nar Rim also getting a decent amount of kills on the lower tier Cardolan Axemen, very well picked out. Dragon's Wrath Warlords doing okay as well. Those Variag mercenary chiefs, more of a nuisance than anything else. But yeah, well played by Rune. A nice, well, I enjoyed seeing Cardolan in action for the first time as well, considering that they now can conceivably go for a much more frontal based army, because most of the time that, you know, obviously in the past Eriador have been very much based around their ambushes, but now they can be used in a much more direct manner, and I quite like the idea of that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.